Ever tried to laugh yourself to sleep and actually yawned instead? Sounds weird, right? But what if I told you that the secret to deep, dreamy rest might just be a lemon saying yellow at midnight? You see, we've been chasing high-energy entertainment all day. Dopamine hits, loud memes, sharp jokes, but come bedtime, that same stimulation becomes your enemy. And here's the truth. Boring is powerful. This isn't your average joke book. It's a carefully crafted journey through the science of boring humor, where repetition, anticlimax, and gentle pacing turn your brain into a sleepy marshmallow. We're not here to make you laugh. We're here to make you yawn, on purpose. And it works. Think Asmer meets dad jokes. Think humor that doesn't try, but quietly succeeds in helping you drift. In a world where everyone wants to go viral, we're going horizontal. Like, literally lying down, you'll learn why sleep-inducing puns, talking socks, and jokes with no punchline might be the next big sleep hack. You'll even discover how to craft your own bedtime joke playlist, complete with whispery delivery and a hint of existential silliness. And you'll do it all while your brain nods off, one anticlimactic joke at a time. So yeah, why did the lemon say yellow at night? Let's just say the answer isn't really the point. You know what's oddly comforting? A joke that doesn't try too hard, predictable humor, like the kind found in dad jokes or the classics from old bedtime tapes, activates the brain just enough to keep it entertained, without firing up alertness. This gentle stimulation is what makes the science of boring humor so fascinating. It's like giving the mind a warm bath before bedtime. Think of it as a soft chuckle rather than a belly laugh. A chuckle that's so slow, it practically whispers, "Go ahead, close your eyes." Studies on the boredom yawning link show that yawning isn't just about tiredness. It's about brain temperature and social cues too. When someone hears a monotonous, lightly funny story, they're more likely to yawn. That's the sweet spot bedtime joke writers aim for. The joke doesn't need to be laugh out loud funny. It needs to be just quirky enough to keep you listening. Think, why did the blanket join a band? Because it had great covers. Yep, yawn-worthy. And that's the goal. In humor, calm pacing, and ultra-light absurdity, act like lullabies. You're not going for punchlines that hit hard. You're going for the soft landings. Writers who understand sleep-inducing puns and the role of repetition can shape content that slides the listener gently into rest. A sock that's always cold, a spoon that dreams of soup. These everyday object humor gems are crafted to lightly tickle the imagination, not startle it awake. It's humor as a soothing balm. That's why writing ultra-boring punchlines is an art. They lean into anticlimax, using calming rhetorical questions like, "What if the moon yawned?" to guide the listener gently toward drowsiness. The idea is not to entertain in the traditional sense, but to relax. Humor here becomes a sleep cue, like a nightlight for the mind. And once you understand this rhythm, well, you'll start seeing why even a lemon might feel the need to say yellow at night. Let's break down this mysterious reflex. The yawn. It's more than just your body saying, "I'm tired." Yawning, especially during periods of low stimulation, is the brain's way of balancing arousal. The boredom yawning link tells us that when things get predictable, like slow stories or one-liners versus lullaby jokes, our mind begins a gentle retreat from alertness. It's not boredom in the negative sense. It's boredom as a gateway to relaxation. Imagine a traffic light turning from green to yellow to red. That yellow zone is where the magic happens. When someone listens to a story-driven versus single-line format routine that lacks surprise but has a soft rhythm, the brain waves begin to shift into slower frequencies. This is where timing and pacing drowsiness become critical. If a joke says, "What did the pillow say to the tired head?" Nothing. It just sighed softly. Your brain doesn't jump. It slides That's the intention, a descent into stillness. Over time, these small dips in excitement nudge you toward deeper rest. There's also the idea of energy conservation. The brain, in its brilliance, recognizes patterns. When it detects repetition or sleep-inducing puns, it thinks, oh, we've heard this kind of thing before. Time to power down. That's why using silence and pause is just as important as the joke itself. It's like nature's own slow-motion lullaby, training your inner alertness to settle. The yawn becomes a quiet invitation. Take a break, drift away. So, when people say boredom is bad, they're missing something profound. Boredom can be medicinal when designed right, especially when embedded in self-recorded bedtime jokes, where your own voice carries the weight of restfulness. When you blend humor as meditation prompts with a whisper and a yawn, you create the perfect cocktail for sleep. Now, speaking of whispers, ever wonder why a lemon might talk, but only at night? So, let's decode this odd little gem. Why did the lemon say yellow at night? At first glance, it sounds nonsensical. Exactly what makes it perfect bedtime humor. There's no expectation of a real punchline here. Instead, the joke leans into psychology of anticlimax. It's meant to disarm the brain with a setup that goes nowhere fast. The listener starts anticipating logic, and then, poof, nothing satisfying. And oddly enough, that emptiness brings peace. The structure is designed to feel like a lull. The use of yellow works on two levels, as a color and as a playful twist on hello. This double entendre doesn't require a mental sprint. It's a gentle jog at best. That subtle layer taps into the science of boring humor, keeping the listener lightly engaged, but not stimulated enough to stay awake. That's the secret. Jokes that tease, not provoke, like how a breeze touches your cheek just enough to remind you you're still here. What's brilliant is how it mimics sleep stories with jokes, where narrative and pun blend softly into the background. The lemon said yellow because it couldn't sleep either. That line, it's not meant to make you laugh, it's meant to make you smirk while your eyelids grow heavy. These types of jokes become meditation prompts in disguise. The ambiguity creates mental space. No closure, no climax, just cozy confusion. Want to write your own versions? Use everyday object humor with no real payoff. Try, why did the sock hide in the drawer? Because it felt left. Or, what did the spoon whisper at midnight? Stir later. These sleepy setups work best when delivered in an ASMR-style delivery, soft and breathy, almost like a secret. And as we'll soon see, repetition is where the real sleepy magic begins. Repetition, my friend, is a lullaby's best friend. When the brain hears the same rhythm, words, or phrasing again and again, it starts to predict what's next. And that prediction brings comfort. In humor, this means cycling back to the same gentle punchlines, soft setups, or calming rhetorical questions that feel oddly familiar. Why did the pillow snore? Because the bed was boring. You could hear that 10 times, and each time it sinks you deeper into that cozy fog. This kind of story, driven versus single-line loop, keeps the brain slightly stimulated, but never surprised. It's the same effect as rocking in a chair. Your mind says, I know this rhythm, and it turns off the alert systems. That's why bedtime humor relies so heavily on the role of repetition, not just in theme, but in timing and pacing drowsiness. A slow build, a soft drop, again and again, like waves that never crash, just ripple. You can apply this by crafting ultra-boring punchlines that recycle images or phrases. For example, the sock said goodnight, then said it again, then once more. The drawer was silent. That's not just repetition of words. It's a repetition of tone, of stillness. Even jokes in sleep stories can use the same recurring character. Say, a yawning teacup that always forgets the punchline. This builds a sense of soft security, predictable, peaceful. And let's not forget the magic in repeating silence itself. In ASMR-style delivery, a pause can echo, a breath can become part of the joke. It's like hearing, "Why did the moon?" Pause. Never answer. That pause is everything. It becomes its own kind of repetition, a gap that tells your brain, rest now, and soon. We'll compare two styles of humor to see which really tucks you in tighter, the zippy one-liner or the dreamy lullaby joke. Picture this, a sharp one-liner like, "I told my pillow a secret." It snorted out. Quick, clever, but it makes your brain jump to connect dots. That's the charm of classic one-liners. They spark, they flash, but at bedtime, that spark might be too bright. Sleep-friendly humor needs a dimmer switch. That's where lullaby jokes come in. Slower, softer, sometimes barely making sense, like a spoon waiting all night for its soup to return. It's not about laughs, it's about landing softly. One-liners are great for a morning commute or over coffee. They light you up, but lullaby jokes are like humor, as meditation prompts, meant to dim the mind. Think of it like music. One-liners are pop songs. Lullaby jokes are ambient soundscapes. You don't dance to them, you drift. The timing and pacing drowsiness matters here. Longer beats, gentler rhythm. When done well, a lullaby joke can make you smile with half-closed eyes, already on your way to dreamland. Want to test this out? Try both styles aloud. One-liner. The yawn walked in before. The joke. Quick, punchy. Now lullaby style. The yawn arrived before the joke even remembered what it was saying. The latter invites you into a daze. That's why writing ultra-boring punchlines requires a different mindset, one that aims for mental softness over mental stimulation. In measuring joke to sleep effectiveness, the sleepy chuckle always wins the bedtime crown. And here's a fun trick. Combine the two. Start with a one-liner tone, then stretch it out into story-driven formats, like, "The sock said something funny once, but it forgot, so it kept mumbling the punchline in its drawer." That blend works wonders in self-recorded bedtime jokes, especially when whispered like a secret. But it gets even better when we start playing with sleepy word games. Those puns so mild, they're practically herbal tea. Soft wordplay is the sleepy sauce of bedtime humor. These aren't your laugh-out-loud puns. They're sleep-inducing puns, the kind that barely register as jokes. But that's the point. Imagine saying, "Why did the mattress sigh?" Because it was too down. It's not meant to impress your inner comedian. It's meant to lull. These puns coast right under your critical thinking radar, which is exactly how they tuck you in. The trick is to use words that evoke stillness, slowness, or common nighttime images. Everyday objects, pillows, slippers, raincoats are gold mines for this kind of everyday object humor. A spoon that stirs in its sleep, a blanket that forgot its dreams. These aren't just jokes, they're bedtime companions. And when you read or listen to them in a soft ASMR-style delivery, they become linguistic lullabies. Words, not just as ideas, but as sensations. Try a few yourself. The clock didn't tick, it whispered, or the teacup spilled its thoughts, then nodded off. The goal isn't to laugh, but to drift. These kinds of phrases work great in self-recorded bedtime jokes, especially when paired with pauses and long, soft breaths. It's wordplay as white noise, meaningful enough to notice, mild enough to ignore. You smile, and then you snooze. And when these puns are woven into a story-driven versus single-line format, their power multiplies. A character, like a sleepwalking umbrella, saying, "I forgot my shade," is silly, yes, but so slow and dreamy, it melts your brain into calm. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. So next up, we'll talk about the tempo of sleep humor, timing and pacing as the real stars of the sleepy joke show. If humor had a sleep setting, pacing would be the dial. The slower you turn it, the softer the laugh, and the heavier the eyelids. Timing and pacing are crucial in the science of boring humor. A fast joke hits and runs. A slow one, it sits with you, like warm tea cooling in your hand. That's why timing and pacing drowsiness is a real thing. The longer the pause before a punchline, the more your mind drifts toward dreamland. Let's say you tell someone, "Why did the nap never start?" And then you wait. Just wait. That pause, filled with silence and pause, becomes the punchline's cradle. The listener's brain, in that gap, begins to wander, gently disconnecting. This is how humor as meditation prompts work. The slower the delivery, the deeper the descent into calm. It's not about the words alone, it's about the space between them. Apply this by reading your self-recorded bedtime jokes slower than feels natural. Draw out the syllables, add breathy pauses, whisper, if you like. The teacup slept through the kettles. Sigh. That's not a joke. It's a verbal rocking chair, combined with a gentle rhythm. This pacing sets the stage for measuring joke-to-sleep effectiveness. When listeners don't remember the punchline, it probably worked perfectly. Pacing also lets everyday object humor settle into your imagination. A sleepy sock doesn't rush. A yawning doorknob takes its time. The moment you start enjoying those long silences and slow descents, you realize bedtime humor isn't about funny, it's about floaty. And once you've mastered pace, you'll be ready to write your own sleep-friendly jokes. From scratch, writing sleepy jokes is like brewing chamomile tea for the brain. The punchlines don't need to hit, they need to hug. The goal is to create ultra-boring punchlines that soothe instead of surprise. Start with a sleepy image, a sock, a cloud, a snoozing spoon. Now pair it with something anticlimactic. Why did the cloud stop thinking? It got too fluffy. That's the vibe. The brain chuckles, then fades. Your tools here are repetition, timing and pacing drowsiness, and the gentle rhythm of expectation with no payoff. Imagine this. The fork had a dream, but it forgot, so it just rested on the table. Is that funny? Kind of. Is it relaxing? Absolutely. The more anticlimactic the joke, the more effective it becomes at inducing that twilight trance. You're not trying to land a punchline, you're trying to whisper one into a nap. To practice, write 3 objects down, like a shoe, a tea bag, and a book. Now imagine them whispering to each other in the dark. The book asks the tea bag for a story. The tea bag, steeped in silence, let your jokes drift into dream logic. This taps into story-driven versus single-line format thinking, where jokes feel like tiny fables with no lessons. Combine that with ASMR-style delivery, and you're basically tucking someone in with words. And here's the secret sauce. Let your silence work just as hard as your words. Pause, then say something like, "And then the slipper forgot what it was saying." That's the whole joke. Using silence and pause gives room for the mind to wander off, which is exactly what we want. Now that you've started writing your own, you'll see how everyday object humor becomes a dreamy playground for sleepy storytelling. There's something wonderfully disarming about hearing a lemon whisper at night. Everyday objects, those familiar, cozy things we see daily, make ideal characters for boring bedtime humor. Why? Because they carry no emotional weight, no drama, just softness. A spoon doesn't argue, a sock doesn't stress. This neutrality makes them perfect vessels for sleep-inducing puns and calming jokes. They feel safe, silly, and beautifully boring. By personifying these objects, you tap into the childlike wonder of imagination without overstimulating the mind. Why did the towel nap early? It felt wrung out. That line is barely a joke, and that's the brilliance of it. It rests gently in your mind, like a feather landing on a pillow. Everyday object humor is so effective because it blends the mundane with a hint of the magical, just enough to let your thoughts wander and settle. Want to try it yourself? Pick an object in your room. Right now, maybe it's your mug. Now whisper a sleepy question to it. Did you dream of tea again? Boom. You're crafting your own jokes and sleep stories. These quiet, object-based musings can form a gentle narrative or simply act as soft standalone lines, especially when paired with ASMR-style delivery. They lull your focus into softness without needing resolution. These inanimate bedtime buddies also make great companions for self-recorded bedtime jokes. Picture an audio track where a spoon sighs, a lemon hums softly, and a blanket forgets what it was saying. Mid-sentence, no plot, just peace. These jokes nestle into the background like a white noise machine with a personality, and it gets even dreamier when you use them inside questions that never need answers. There's a special kind of calm hidden in questions that don't demand answers. Think about it. When someone asks, "What if clouds get sleepy too?" Your brain doesn't rush to solve anything. Instead, it floats. That's why calming rhetorical questions are such powerful tools in humor as meditation prompts. They guide your mind to pause, reflect, and then maybe yawn. These setups gently nudge the door open without needing to step through. What makes these questions even more relaxing is how they feel safe and slow. Why did the sock stop mid-sentence? That's it. There's no follow-up. Your brain starts to wander, not out of curiosity, but because it's been lulled. This is exactly what happens in boring humor science. The focus shifts from logic to vibe, like when a spoon asks, "Have you ever stirred a dream?" You're not thinking, you're floating. You can write your own by pairing simple questions with sleepy images. Try, "What did the pillow forget today?" Or, "Do slippers ever feel lonely when it's sunny?" These phrases, especially when spoken in an ASMR-style delivery, work beautifully in self-recorded bedtime jokes. You're not telling a story. You're opening soft doors for the mind to peek through, then decide to nap on the threshold. This technique pairs wonderfully with story-driven versus single-line format humor. You can scatter these rhetorical whispers throughout a sleepy tale, a blanket that forgets it's bedtime, a cup that never remembers if it was steeped. These questions anchor the mood like gentle waves. And coming up, we'll explore exactly how to decide between telling a story or keeping things whisper short. Choosing between a full story and a one-liner at bedtime is like deciding between tea and warm milk. Both work, but the effect depends on how they're delivered. Story-driven formats let you sink into a sleepy world. A lemon who forgets its punchline halfway through a midnight stroll. That's not just a joke, it's a vibe. These slow narratives mirror sleep stories with jokes, wrapping you up in gentle repetition, soft descriptions, and anticlimactic humor that whispers, not shouts. On the flip side, single-line jokes, especially ones with sleep-inducing puns, offer little drips of drowsiness. The spoon said nothing, and it was everything. That's all it takes. These micro doses of humor can be spaced out in self-recorded bedtime jokes to act like mini yawns. They're lightweight, non-committal, and easy to let go of. Great for folks who prefer to drift off fast without riding a narrative wave. So which is better, honestly? It depends on your pace. If you enjoy sinking into a rhythm and floating on gentle imagery, stories are your best friend. But if you need that slow slide into sleep without getting too attached, one-liners versus lullaby jokes might suit you better. Try blending both. A story about a yawn that travels across a room, punctuated by tiny object-based giggles, like the lamp blinked once, then dreamed of being off forever. Whether you choose stories or singles, the real power lies in the timing and pacing drowsiness they carry. Both formats rely on boring humor science, gentle absurdity, and that soft space where logic fizzles out. What ties them together even more? The way you deliver them. And next, we'll explore how whispering, pausing, and softness make even the silliest spoon sound like a lullaby. Think of ASMR delivery like wrapping a joke in a soft blanket and handing it to your brain with a whisper. ASMR-style delivery taps into sensory comfort, slow speech, soft tones, delicate pauses. It turns even the quirkiest everyday object humor into a dreamy lullaby. When you say, "The sock sighed and folded itself in a barely there voice, you're not just telling a joke, you're delivering calm. The joke becomes touch, not just sound. This style works wonders with sleep-inducing puns and calming rhetorical questions. A soft-spoken, "Why did the blanket stop mid-yawn?" delivered at a hush invites the listener to lean into the moment. It's not about punch, it's about presence. You're not entertaining, you're soothing. And that's what makes self-recorded bedtime jokes so powerful. Your voice, slowed and softened, becomes a familiar lull, a cue to unwind. To apply this, practice slowing down your delivery, even more than feels comfortable. Let silence linger, lower your tone, let the edges of your words blur. Use ambient sound or gentle background noise if you are creating a track. A whispery, "What if the teacup just forgot?" can be more powerful than any laugh. This approach aligns with the psychology of anticlimax, not building up to break tension, but letting tension gently dissolve. You can pair this with story-driven formats or standalone lines. Either way, ASMR turns the joke into a soundscape. It makes the brain listen differently, not with alertness, but with receptiveness. This blend of voice, timing, and gentle absurdity is like a nightlight for the imagination. And now that your voice is in tune with sleep, it's time we look back at where this all began and how bedtime humor has always been part of how we wind down. Long before streaming apps whispered us to sleep, people used stories, murmured jokes, and gentle voices to coax the mind into rest, from the mystical Sandman, sprinkling dreams, to grandmothers telling slow tales by candlelight. Sleep-inducing entertainment has always existed. These stories weren't action-packed. They were quiet, rhythmic, and filled with slow suspense. Much like today's boring humor science, they weren't meant to impress. They were meant to rest. In medieval times, bards would end their performances with quiet lull stories, sometimes throwing in simple humor about sleepy animals or yawning villagers. Fast forward to the 20th century, and we find dad jokes, those wonderfully anticlimactic puns, doing similar work. Did you hear about the tired calendar? It ran out of dates. These jokes didn't just entertain, they soothed. They created a pause, an eye roll, and most importantly, a yawn. Modern versions now come as self-recorded bedtime jokes, jokes and sleep stories, and ASMR-style delivery podcasts. But the intent is the same, to build a cocoon of calm around the listener, whether it's the teacup that forgot how to stir or the lemon that whispered yellow at night. The principle hasn't changed. We've just adapted it, infusing humor with timing and pacing drowsiness, light repetition, and object-based wonder. And this tradition isn't limited to one place. Cultures around the world have long relied on humor as part of nighttime rituals. Some whispered, some chanted, some mumbled gently through sleep-inducing puns. It's in these cultural roots that we find a deeper meaning behind boring humor. It's not about dullness, it's about safety. And next, we'll travel through those cultural differences and see how each one makes boring bedtime laughter uniquely their own. Every culture has its own way of saying, "Shh, it's time to sleep," and many of them use humor, yes, even the boring kind, as a gentle tool to guide people into rest. In Japan, for instance, folk tales often include talking animals or objects delivering slow, soft-spoken wisdom. These stories aren't punchy, they meander, like story-driven formats meant to hypnotize, not excite. A teapot that forgets its lid, that's classic sleepy gold. In Scandinavian countries, bedtime humor often blends with lullabies, subtle rhyme, slow pacing, and occasional absurdity. The snow whispered a joke, but it melted before the punchline. This kind of humor becomes a kind of meditation, deeply rooted in humor, as meditation prompts. Meanwhile, in Brazil and parts of South America, storytelling at night includes sleepy misadventures, with characters who can't quite remember what they were doing. It's the same rhythm as our beloved ultra-boring punchlines. Across cultures, the common thread is this: the psychology of anticlimax. Whether it's a yawning moon in India or a dozing cow in France, bedtime humor favors gentleness over genius. The everyday object humor transcends language. A sleepy spoon is funny, universally, and when paired with repetition, soft delivery, and a whispering tone, you find that timing and pacing drowsiness becomes a global language. What's beautiful is that today, we can blend these styles in self-recorded bedtime jokes that carry the sleepy DNA of every corner of the world. Add a Scandinavian-style lullaby joke to a Japanese-style object story, and wrap it all in an ASMR whisper, and you've got a cross-cultural yawn inducer. And speaking of yawns, next we'll look at why endings that don't quite deliver can actually be the most satisfying kind of sleepy humor. There's a strange comfort in a story that leads you nowhere. Welcome to the psychology of anticlimax, when the brain expects a punchline and it never comes, or comes so softly it barely lands. It lets go. That moment of, oh, that's it, feels oddly soothing. In sleep-inducing humor, anticlimax works like a slow exhale. The spoon waited all night, but nothing stirred. There's no laugh track needed, just peace. You see, traditional jokes thrive on tension and release, but at bedtime, we flip that formula. The tension is barely there, and the release is a yawn. That's why boring humor science prioritizes anticlimax. No twists, no shock, just sleepy suggestions. A sock that forgets it's a sock, a lemon that says yellow without reason. These ideas become anchors, soft, slow, satisfying in their stillness. Want to use this technique, build toward something, and then don't quite deliver, like the book walked to the shelf, but it forgot why. That moment of nothingness makes your brain pause, then slow down. These punchlines, or rather, ultra-boring punchlines, can be layered into self-recorded bedtime jokes, where each line lets your listener's attention wander a bit more, and eventually drift. Anticlimax is powerful because it respects silence. It doesn't demand attention. It lets attention fade. When used in tandem with timing and pacing drowsiness, everyday object humor, and a whispering voice, it becomes an emotional lull. And as we'll soon see, when you pair these non-jokes with mindfulness, they stop being jokes at all and start becoming meditation. Sometimes, the most powerful jokes aren't meant to make you laugh. They're meant to help you breathe. These are jokes that feel like meditation. They ask a sleepy question, drop a soft image, and then leave a gentle pause. What if the blanket never stopped unfolding? It's humor as a meditation prompt, light, non-linear, and subtly grounding. The mind doesn't resist it. It accepts. It drifts. These types of jokes blur the line between funny and mindful. When crafted well, they tap into the same mental space as deep breathing or gentle body scans. The candle flickered, then forgot why. That's not just boring humor science. That's a verbal exhale. They slow brainwaves, just like actual mindfulness exercises. In fact, many self-recorded bedtime jokes work even better when used during meditation practice. To create one, start with a sleepy image, then pose a calm, open-ended question. Does the spoon ever dream of tea? Whisper it slowly, with pauses, letting silence settle between the words. Suddenly, the joke isn't just a line, it's a floating thought. These work beautifully in jokes and sleep stories, where punchlines are optional and presence is the point. You're guiding attention inward, not outward. Blending this approach into your bedtime ritual transforms humor into a tool for inner stillness. The teacup, the sock, the lemon, they're not just quirky characters, they're meditative symbols. And soon, you'll see how the spaces between these thoughts, the gaps, the pauses, are where the real magic happens. Silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's a powerful presence in itself. When used with intention, it becomes a lullaby. In boring humor science, Silence acts like a soft inhale before the mind exhales. Think of a line like, "The sock walked into the drawer." Pause. And that was enough. That little gap. That's where the yawn lives. That's where sleep begins to tug at your thoughts. This technique is essential to timing and pacing drowsiness. A well-placed pause slows the brain, encouraging it to fill in the blank or to stop trying entirely. It gives space for imagination, relaxation, or simply stillness. Sleep-inducing puns, delivered too quickly, miss this magic. But when you say, "The lemon said yellow," and let the silence linger, the listener's mind starts to drift. Mission accomplished. You can use these pauses as intentional breaks in self-recorded bedtime jokes. Let the air breathe. Let your voice soften. Let space do the talking. It's a beautiful counterpart to humor as meditation prompts, a kind of verbal minimalism. You're not just telling a joke, you're setting a rhythm for rest. A hush between words becomes a hammock for the mind to swing in. And when these pauses are woven into story-driven formats, they become chapter breaks in the dream. A spoon forgets mid-sentence, a pillow sighs, and the rest is silence. That's the lull. That's the magic. And once you've mastered that, the next step is capturing this in your own voice. Literally, there's something profoundly soothing about hearing your own voice, especially when it's soft, slow, and a little silly. Creating a self-recorded bedtime joke playlist turns your humor into a personal sleep tool. You don't need to be a voice actor. Just speak gently, whisper a little, leave space. Say things like, "The spoon said, good night," and let it linger. It's like giving yourself a lullaby, one pun at a time. Start by selecting a few everyday object humor pieces you love, maybe from earlier topics or your own sleepy creations. Keep them short and dreamy, 5 to 10 seconds each. Add some calming rhetorical questions between them like, "Did the slipper forget something again?" The goal is to build a rhythm, not a show. Let your playlist become background brain music. The ASMR style delivery is key here. You don't need fancy equipment. A smartphone and a quiet room work fine. Use voice memo apps or free software like Audacity to record. And remember, timing matters. Pause after each joke. Let the silence and pause do its work. A well-timed sigh between punchlines. That might be the very moment your mind lets go and slips towards sleep. Once you've got a few tracks, experiment with formats, single jokes, story-driven snippets, or soft rambling thoughts. Layer in some ambient noise if you'd like, rain, soft music, or nothing at all. Over time, this becomes a powerful bedtime ritual, and it gets even more dreamy when you combine your voice with gentle narratives, weaving jokes and sleep stories that guide you into the deepest part of the night. Imagine this, a quiet story about a slipper looking for its missing sock, with every few lines interrupted by a joke so mild it might as well be a nap. That's the magic of combining jokes with sleep stories. The narrative gives structure. The ultra-boring punchlines give rhythm. It's like building a blanket out of words. Each sentence, another soft layer. You're not telling a joke in a story. You're weaving the joke as the story. To do this well, start with a sleepy premise, a spoon that's lost its stir, or a lemon that whispers secrets at night. Build the tale slowly, using timing and pacing drowsiness, and sprinkle in sleep-inducing puns as if they were dream dust. For example, the blanket wandered through the house, searching for the pillow. "I've got your corners," it whispered. Not funny, but oh so drowsy. Use pauses between scenes. Let silence and pause stretch like twilight between stars. In each moment, you have room to slip in a calming, rhetorical question. Did the teacup ever find its steam? These moments guide the listener's mind toward softness, and when you record it in your own voice with ASMR-style delivery, it becomes even more immersive. It's a bedtime journey with no destination. This technique also helps with measuring joke-to-sleep effectiveness. If your listener never makes it to the end of the story. That's success. Sleep stories filled with forgetful spoons, yawning socks, and anticlimactic events are not about plot, they're about mood. And now, we'll wrap it all up with a final question. How do you know it's working? How do you know if your boring bedtime jokes are doing their job? Simple. You don't remember the end. That's the first and best sign. If you drift off mid-joke or halfway through your self-recorded bedtime story, you've nailed it. The purpose of these ultra-boring punchlines isn't to be remembered. They're meant to escort your brain to the door of sleep and then quietly sneak away. You can also track your experience. Use a journal or a sleep app. Make note. Did I laugh lightly? Did I feel more relaxed than usual? Did the timing and pacing drowsiness help slow my thoughts? Over time, patterns will emerge when you blend calming, rhetorical questions, ASMR-style delivery, and story-driven formats. You'll begin noticing which combinations consistently make your thoughts fuzzier. Try alternating joke types. Some nights go with everyday object humor, other nights play with anticlimax-heavy stories. You might find your brain responds differently depending on your mood. And here's the best part. If you're falling asleep faster, remembering less, and waking up more refreshed, it's working. The science of boring humor isn't about punchlines. It's about peace. Eventually, this bedtime humor becomes its own meditation prompt, not just a sleep tool, but a self-care ritual. So if you ever wonder, did I fall asleep before the lemon said yellow? Chances are, your sleepy jokes are a total success. So now you know, the funniest way to fall asleep isn't really that funny. And that's the magic. You've learned how a spoon's whisper, a sock's silence, or a lemon's midnight mumble can be more powerful than melatonin. You've discovered the psychology of anticlimax, mastered ultra-boring punchlines, and even turned jokes into meditation prompts. The question is, are you actually going to use this? Or will tonight be just another scroll session under the covers? What if, instead, you recorded your first sleepy joke tonight? Just one. Whisper it, pause, yawn, sleep. What's stopping you from building a nightly ritual that doesn't just help you rest, but makes you smile as you fade? Ready to change how you fall asleep forever? Then subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you never miss another sleepy laugh, whispery story, or perfectly boring punchline. Because in this corner of the internet, boring is not a bug. It's the ultimate bedtime feature.